mantras of our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says it is a mistake to think that a thought or will can have effect only when it is expressed in speech or act. The unspoken thought, the unexpressed will are also active energies and can produce their own vibrations, effects, or reactions. With always our love and blessing, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo Savitri, Book 5, The Book of Love, Canto 3, Satyavan and Savitri. Page 403. And Satyavan replied to Savitri, in days when yet his sight looked clear on life, King Dyumatsena once, the Shalva, reigned through all the tract which from behind these tops, passing its days of emerald delight, in trusting converse with the traveller winds, turns, looking back towards the southern heavens, and leans its flank upon the musing hills. But equal fate removed her covering hand. A living night enclosed the strong man's paths. Heaven's brilliant gods recalled their careless gifts, took from blank eyes their glad and helping ray, and led the uncertain goddess from his side. Outcast from empire of the outer light, lost to the comradeship of seeing men, he sojourns into solitudes within, and in the solemn rustle of the words. Son of that king, I, Satyavan, have lived contented, for not yet of thee aware, in my high people loneliness of spirit, and this huge vital murmur kin to me, nursed by the vastness, pupil of solitude. Great nature came to her recovered child. I reigned in a kingdom of a nobler kind than men can build upon dull matter's soil. I met the frankness of the primal earth. I enjoyed the intimacy of infant God. Words of our Divine Mother, taken from the collective works of our Divine Mother, question and answers of 1950-51, date 21st December 1950. One of the disciples take out the wordings from prayers and meditations of 10th November 1914 and says, what Mother has written on that date on 10th November 1914 and says, O consciousness, immobile and serene, thou watchest at the confines of the world like a sphinx of eternity, and yet to some thou confidest thy secret. These can become thy sovereign will, who chooses without preferences, executes without desire. For these words, our Divine Mother gives the explanation and says, this immobile consciousness is the mother of dreams, the sphinx of eternity, who keeps vigil on the confines of the world like an enigma to be solved. This enigma is the problem of our life, the very raison d'etre of the universe. The problem of our life is to realize the divine, or rather to become once again aware of the divine who is the universe, the origin, cause, and goal of life. Our Divine Mother says, those who find the secret of the springs of eternity become that active and creative power. To choose without preference and execute without desire is the great difficulty and at the very root of the development of consciousness and self control. To choose in this sense means to see what is true and bring it into existence, and to choose thus without the least personal bias for anything, any person, action, circumstance is exactly what is most difficult for an ordinary human being. Yet, one must learn to act without any preference, free from all attractions and likings, taking one stand solely on the truth which guides. And having chosen in accordance with the truth the necessary action, one must carry it out without any desire. Our Divine Mother says, if you observe yourself very attentively, you will see that before acting, you need an inner impetus, something which pushes you in the ordinary man. This impetus is generally desire. This desire ought to be replaced by a clear, precise, constant vision of the truth. Some call this the voice of God or the will of God. The true meaning of these words has been falsified, so I prefer to speak of the truth, though this is but a very limited aspect of that which we cannot name, but which is the source and the goal of all existence. Our Divine Mother says, I deliberately do not use the word God because religions have given this name to an all powerful being who is other than his creation and outside it. This is not correct. However, on the physical plane, the difference is obvious. For we are yet all that we no longer want to be, and He is all that we want to become. Question, sweet mother, how can we know what the divine will is? For this, our Divine Mother says, one does not know it, one feels it. And in order to feel it, one must will with such an intensity, such a sincerity, that every obstacle disappears. As long as you have a preference, a desire, an attraction, a liking, all these veil the truth from you. Hence, the first thing to do is to try to master, govern, correct all the moments of your consciousness and eliminate those which cannot be changed until all becomes a perfect and permanent expression of the divine truth. And even to His will, this is not enough, for very often one forgets to will it. What is necessary is an aspiration which burns in the being like a constant fire, and every time you have a desire, a preference, an attraction, it must be thrown into this fire. If you do this persistently, you will see that a little gleam of true consciousness begins to dawn in your ordinary consciousness. At first, it will be faint, very far behind all the din of desires, preferences, attractions, and likings. But you must go behind all this and find that true consciousness, all calm, tranquil, almost silent. Our Divine Mother says, those who are in contact with the true consciousness see all the possibilities at the same time and may deliberately choose even the most unfavorable if necessary. But
To reach this point, you must go a long way. Question: Sweet Mother, should preferences be neutralized or forgotten? For this, our Divine Mother says one should not have them. When the mind becomes silent, when it stops judging, pushing itself forward with its so called knowledge, one begins to solve the problem of life. One must refrain from judging, for the mind is only an instrument of action, not an instrument of the true knowledge. The true knowledge comes from elsewhere. If one refrained from judging, one would arrive at an ever more precise knowledge of the truth, and 9/10 of the world's misery would disappear. The great disorder in the world would, to a large extent, be neutralized if the mind could admit that it does not know. Question, Sweet Mother. Sri Aurobindo says in Thoughts and Glimpses in volume 16, page 377, when we pass beyond enjoyings, we shall have bliss. Desire was the help, desire is the power. For this, our Divine Mother says, according to the stage where you are. Naturally, says our Divine Mother, I speak to those who sincerely want to become conscious of their true truth and to express it in their life. I think this holds true for all who are here. And I tell the teachers, says our Divine Mother, I tell the teachers that they must teach more and more in accordance with the truth. For if we have a school here, it is in order that it be different from the millions of schools in the world. It is to give the children a chance to distinguish between ordinary life and the divine life, the life of truth, to see things in a different way. It is useless to want to repeat here the ordinary life. The teacher's mission is to open the eyes of the children to something which they cannot find elsewhere, says our Divine Mother. Prayers and Meditations, October 8, 1914. The joy that is contained in activity is compensated and balanced by the perhaps still greater joy contained in withdrawal from all activity. When the two states alternate in the being, or are even simultaneously conscious, the felicity is complete, for then, O Lord, thy plenitude is realized. O Divine Master, thou hast granted to me the infinitude of divine contemplation, the perfect calm of thy eternity, and through an identification with our Divine Mother, the all-realizer, thou hast permitted me to participate in her sovereign power to be conscious and active. In the omnipotent bliss of thy infinitude, I bow to thee.